Quilting is an old craft that used to be when women would get together with family members and they would work on a quilt, and you'd have the mom and the grandmothers and the aunts and the daughters and the granddaughters, and they'd all get together and they would work on quilts, and they would all help with, and they used to with a needle and thread they would do specialized quilting, and they put all these memories into it. And then when a young lady married, they were given a quilt, and so that quilt became a very special memory. You know, in this day and age in which we live with technology and computers and iPads and iPhones and iPods, and people are so connected to a little device, they're losing their creativity, they're losing how to have conversation, and they're just not doing some of the old crafts. So I thought I'd make a video how to make a quilt. Over the years, I have sewn lots of baby quilts and my children's beds, quilts for our bed. Now I'm thinking, what can I do for my grandkids? Because I'm a grandmother now. For my children, I have to share this. I actually sewed their quilts out of corduroy fabric from pants that they used to wear. We always lived in warm, cold climates up in north, and where we have cold winters and you have snow and ice, and corduroy is a great fabric for pants for boys. I have 5 sons, and they like to get down on the floor and play and vroom, vroom, with their cars and whatnot, or wrestle, and it frustrated me that their knees would wear holes in them, where the rest of the fabric was just awesome fabric. So I started to collect all of their pants that they wore out the knees, and sort of cut up the fabric and saved them until I had a large collection of corduroy. And then I made a quilt for each boy. They all had the same design, but each one had their own particular color theme. You see, I started a color theme, this was actually back in Desert Storm, and that's a long story that I've actually wrote an article about in She Magazine, July of, I'm going to say 2014, or is it 2013? In She Magazine, there's an article about my Desert Storm experience. It was during that time when my husband was gone to war, and I was home with 4 boys. They were all under the age of 6. Yeah, my oldest was in kindergarten. And I was pregnant with my 5th child, who happened to be a girl. But I was going crazy. At that time in my life, little boys were noise makers and mess makers. One day I went into the kitchen and the sink was filled with like 30 cups with just 4 little boys. Well, I got frustrated with all the dirty dishes. I was already doing a ton of laundry, and now I gotta do more dishes. So I decided, okay, you know what? We are gonna change things. Everybody is gonna be an assigned color. Your cup will be that color, your toothbrush will be that color. If I buy ball caps, each will have their own color. If I buy t-shirts, they each will have their own color. We later expanded that color system into sleeping bags and a laundry bag, and then we divided up their closet by color so they could help put away the laundry. And that color system actually helped organize my life. And so later, when I had all this fabric, all these corduroy pants that they had worn out, I separated them by color, and then I incorporated a few other colors with each one. So there was one overall main color in each quilt. So one of them was black, red, one was green, one was blue, one was navy blue. So they each had their own color, and I sewed them each a quilt. And so that quilt became something that meant something. It meant something to me. It came from a time when I was a little bit overwhelmed with motherhood. Before my husband went to war, we debated, should I get pregnant or not get pregnant? I had done some research. I was like, why do I keep coming up with boys? And that's why I did all this research, and I found some information how I could get myself a daughter. And I actually used that information and decided, okay, my husband's going to war. Will he come back from war? And it was a tough decision, but I decided this might be my last chance to have a daughter. So we're going to go for it. And we did. And he went to war. not knowing if he was going to come back. Even when he left, I wasn't even told where he was going. And so it was a very frightening time and a very trying time for me in my life. So here I am pregnant, 4 little boys under the age of 6, driving me crazy. But my color system actually, it gave me help during the toughest time of my younger years of being a mom and raising children. And so the quilt is kind of encapsulates all of that. And one of the quilts, my son took it to college with him. I mean, he loved his quilt. It was special. His mommy made it for him. And in the quilt, it had a special one little piece of fabric, which was actually a bib to a pair of overalls that I sewed for him that had footies in it, you know, the kind that snaps up the crotch so that you can open them up and change your diaper easy enough. And I love the feet sewn in them so you don't have to worry about shoes. But I actually designed that a little baby outfit, and so I decided to incorporate that little bib for those overalls that I sewed for him into his quilt. So in the center of his quilt he had that little bib, which I turned it into a pocket on the quilt. That's where we put the little tooth for the imaginary tooth fairy. He held on to that quilt for many, many years, and when he went to college he took it with him. Even though it was kind of falling apart and getting worn and tattered, he loved his quilt because it was something his mom made special for him. So quilts can have a deep connection to one's past, or it can be an awesome gift that you make for someone that's personalized and it's special. And so that's my quilt story, and I didn't mean to take so much time to share that detail, but hopefully it'll inspire you to what can you do with a quilt. I have made quilts as gifts for baby showers, and I've made quilts for my children. This one quilt that I made my son when he was really little, like, I'm not sure what age, maybe 1 or 2. It was a red, white, and blue quilt, and I had hand quilted trains. The theme was trains, and I had decorated his room with trains. And that quilt became really special to him. He would always carry it around with him. Whenever we watched a movie as a family, he would grab his pillow and his quilt, and he would throw his pillow on the floor and lay in front of the TV, and he'd have his quilt. And he'd be, I don't think he was a thumbsucker, but he always kept his quilt like this. He carried that quilt around like all the time. I think it became his security blanket. When my babies were young, I would try to give them some sort of a security item. It could be a toy or a blanket, or for one kid it was its thumb. It helped them to learn to sleep at night so they could self-comfort themselves. But for this kid it was a quilt, and he became attached to that quilt. And the reason that I call it a security blanket is because it actually did give him security. And here's proof. One day we had some visitors at our house, and there was a young child, a toddler, and he was crying and upset. I don't know what was the problem there. And my son went upstairs to his room, and he got his blanket, his special quilt, and he brought it down and he offered it to the little boy, thinking it would make him feel better. Isn't that sweet? It made him feel better. It gave him security. He had that quilt for such a long time. I didn't think he would ever part with it. And I confess, when it was getting raggy and just torn up and dirty, he didn't want me to wash it. One day when he was, I don't know, 5 or 6 or so, so I took that quilt from him when he wasn't looking, and I threw it away. Now I'm sorry I did that. I should have saved it. I think today now he's a father. He has his own son. I probably could have fixed it. I probably could have salvaged it, and then it would have been really cool if I could give it to him and he could share it with his son, because there were so many special feelings and memories attached to that quilt. So I'm hoping that this video will inspire you to make a quilt for somebody. Could be someone in your family, or a gift. it can be something that's personal, something that you did, you made. It's not hard. It's probably one of the, well, if you do a full-size quilt for a queen-size bed, it's going to be a lot more work. But a child's bed or a baby crib is a quick, easy project that you could do, and you can make a connection with somebody and give them something to cherish. A baby quilt is a very quick project. It can be sewn up in one day. I'm going to show you the step-by-step process of designing and sewing a quilt. I'll probably do two videos. One will be the designing process and one will be the actual putting it together and some sewing tips on how to work faster and to be efficient. These two videos should give you everything you need to know to make a quilt for any size, whether you want to make it for a twin-size bed for the kids or if you want to make it a full-size quilt for your bed. Don't be afraid. You can make a quilt, and I can show you how. Make sure you catch all three of my videos on how to design a quilt and how to sew a quilt. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.